electron positron dipole orbit. A centrifugal force reduces. The ether hydrodynamically approaches, therefore exposes a source of centrifugal force as lying in a fluid like ether between electrons and positrons and dipoles, hence explaining why the electric sea can behave like a liquid for the purposes of a planetary motion and yet still behave like a solid for the purpose of electromagnetic radiation. In a planet orbit, the shear region is cushioned by a centrifugal hovercraft effect, while in electromagnetic radiation, particles maintain their positrons in a double helix solid. Guys, this is so monumental because you can't just go by what you learn on this planet in textbooks. You got to go with what's learned from the outward coming back to where we are in our thoughts and patterns. Now, going into orbital stability and magnetic levitation. These are coral rocks, guys. In case you notice, these are coral rocks. These are Florida coral rocks. The same composition that Ed Leedskalnin dealt with. The same from every angle. These coral rocks are the same composition. So, did he levitate them? Did he lift them up? Did he hoist them? We all don't know. We can use our basic knowledge and say, well, we got video of them lifting it up out of the ground. We got video of them pulling it along the ground. We also have video of them using a tripod. Some say the wheel was part of that process. I don't think the 24-pole part of the wheel was the process. Ed always claimed to have 10 different machines. And I know from being down in Coral Castle, you can lift this head off and put a new head on by just taking this hub out. There's just 2 pins down here that hold it in place. That's how those flywheels came off. So using the 10 different wheels, you know, we can only go by what we see down in Coral Castle. And one is a 16-pole wheel that's written on 2 places, guys. I don't know if you all knew this. One is on the door, the metal door down there into the entrance to Coral Castle, which in the process getting refurbished, getting put back on. The second place is on one of the coral rock walls. One of the exterior walls on the side is the same drawing of the earth, the ring bell, and the 16-pole in the center with the line going across it. So there must be really important in Ed's life. So another fact I want to bring up is in that 30s video on Ed Leedskalnin lifting up and stuff, basically you can see the background of how much all the figurines are in place. He's just putting the walls together and cranking it together. So it goes to show you that a lot of that stuff was done in that time frame. When he put together his book, Magnetic Current and stuff, is after that time. So electricity doesn't seem to be part of that time frame for Ed Leedskalnin working on his second version of his house. So back to this part. I want to talk about the orbital stability and magnetic levitation, because if we could figure out how to manipulate the positive or negative that's holding this, bonding this rock together, we should be able to levitate it. And what do we need to do that? So we're going to talk about something here. I'm going to do a little reading off this information I dug up, and we're going to work off of that and just put it out there for the great minds, my garage scientists out there, great minds to be thinking about, okay? It says here that gravity is an all prevailing ether. Tension that is associated with large-scale radial rotational precoloration of ether through its electrical sea and into the sinks of the atomic molecular matter. It is therefore a monopole field, which obeys the inverse square law. The gravitational field has no rotational axis, which means that in a large scale, vorticity has been absorbed into magnetic fields of tiny electrons and positrons, vortexes of the electric sea. Gravitational field lines between two objects spread outward and away from each other. This means that a pressure must exist laterally between the field lines. This pressure is due to centrifugal force in an equatorial plane of dipoles along the path of flow, and also due to the polarization of electrons and positron dipoles due to this flow. And hence to the obeys the inverse cube law and dipole field. The difference in power laws between gravity and centrifugal force gives rise to the stability of planetary orbit. Transverse motion causes shear stress in the electric sea. That gives rise to an increase in centrifugal pressure that can be charged bodies. And as we increase the negative charge on one or both of these bodies, the linear polarization of electrons and positron dipoles in the electric sea will increase. So that goes back to trying to put another field in there. It's going to have the ether step in and balance out what's being done. But guys, there's more to it. A reversal threshold will be reached in which two negatively charged bodies will repel each other, and repulse force will obey in the inverse cube law of the dipole field. In the case of magnetic repulsion between two like poles, the field lines spread outward and away from each other, and repulse pressure acting laterally between the lines of force is due to the centrifugal force acting on the equatorial plane of the rotating electron and positron dipoles. Magnetic repulsion will obey the inverse cube law within the extent of magnetic field, since the dipole field. The difference of the power laws between the repulsive forces and the attractive forces means that it is possible to have both electrostatic and magnetic levitation. Electrostatic and magnetic attraction arises from an ether tension along the forces of the connect directly between the unlike charges and unlike poles. In the electrostatic case, bam, need I say more? Electrostatic case, the attractive forces should obey the inverse square law. In the case of magnetic attraction, we don't have a spherical symmetry, and the inverse square law will only arise in a microscopic level between electrons and positrons along the double helix lines of force. Guys, very, very, very important. One more little, sorry about my reading, and just excited. Electric current, just a small portion of it. Ether has a very important implications for electric current. When electric current is understood in terms of flow of ether, it then becomes clear that a wire loop that is rotating in a magnetic field is actually screwing ether out of positrons and electrons in the electric sea. Ether will be pumped outward from the generator into electric circuit during both halves of the AC cycle. Wow. So basically, we are talking about possibly turning this wheel, starting off with a battery using 1.5 volts, increasing it, spark gapping it taking it and putting the load back into the system from the capacitor. Pretty interesting stuff. You guys got any questions? Feel free. Leave comments. Leave comments. Ed Leedskalnins wheel. The Learning Lab of Ed Leedskalnin. Check it out.